Why we're all addicted, not just in the clinical sense but in the subtle, everyday patterns we normalize, to technology, drama, achievement and validation. We have to start not with screens or school report cards or social media platforms, but with the human brain, which evolved not for modern life, but for survival in a wild, uncertain, tribal world. Our ancestors were constantly scanning the environment for threats, rewards, and social cues, relying on bursts of dopamine and cortisol to navigate danger, form alliances, and ensure reproduction. Fast forward to today, and we're still those same creatures with Stone Age hardware trying to run software written by Silicon Valley, educational institutions, corporate hierarchies, and social media companies, all of which capitalize on those exact neurochemical systems that once helped us survive but now keep us scrolling, chasing, arguing, and doubting. Take technology for instance. The average person touches their phone over 2,600 times per day, not because they're weak or lazy, but because smartphones were designed, using behavioral psychology principles pioneered by B.F. Skinner and later refined in tech labs, to operate like slot machines delivering unpredictable rewards, likes, messages, viral videos, that stimulate the mesolimbic dopamine pathway, the same system activated by cocaine or gambling. Companies like Facebook literally ran thousands of A/B tests to optimize color schemes, notification styles, and algorithmic feeds to hijack your attention, with former engineers like Tristan Harris openly admitting that apps were engineered to exploit psychological vulnerabilities. The result is not just distraction, but a rewiring of attention itself. Scientific studies show our average attention span has dropped from 12 seconds in 2000 to under 8 seconds today, shorter than that of a goldfish, with measurable changes in prefrontal cortex activity observed via fMRI scans in chronic device users. But the addiction goes deeper, because we don't just check our phones for information, we check them for emotional regulation, for identity reinforcement, for that microdose of self-worth that comes when a message lights up our screen. And this ties into the next addiction. Validation, which isn't a 21st century invention but a core human need. Babies cry to be held, children seek praise from parents, and adults post selfies on Instagram, not because we're narcissists by nature, but because we're wired to fear rejection and crave inclusion. After all, for most of human history, exclusion from the tribe meant death. Maslow's hierarchy places esteem needs, respect, recognition, self-confidence, right after basic survival, and social media amplifies this by turning approval into metrics. Likes, followers, retweets. A UCLA study found that teens show increased brain activity in the nucleus accumbens, the brain's reward center, when they receive more likes on photos, suggesting that social validation is neurologically addictive, especially during adolescence when identity formation is peaking and the brain is still developing. And yet, what begins as seeking connection can mutate into compulsive comparison, eroding self-worth, especially when we curate highlight reels and measure our messy lives against everyone else's filtered reality. Validation, then, becomes a double-edged sword. We need it to feel real, but we overdose and start outsourcing our sense of self. Which brings us to the third addiction, achievement, the culturally sanctioned drug of choice for high performers, students, entrepreneurs, and modern adults taught that their value lies in output, results, titles, and trophies. Achievement is seductive because it looks productive but often masks deeper wounds. The fear of inadequacy, the craving to be seen, the belief that if I just win enough, I'll be enough. Schools often reward compliance and test scores over curiosity and emotional intelligence, creating performance-based self-esteem where kids learn that love and approval come from grades, gold stars, and scholarships. By adulthood, this morphs into hustle culture, workaholism, and burnout, where people identify not by who they are but by what they do. I'm a lawyer, I'm a founder, I'm a straight-A student. But when achievement becomes the core of identity, we confuse doing with being, and then collapse when we fail or pause. Harvard's 85-year longitudinal grant study found that the strongest predictor of long-term well-being wasn't status or income, but close relationships, and yet millions chase the next achievement while relationships erode. The World Health Organization has declared burnout a syndrome, with symptoms like emotional exhaustion and depersonalization now common in high-achieving professionals. We push and push but never feel done because the goalposts keep moving. First it was college, then the job, then the promotion, then the side hustle, then the passive income stream, and so on. It's the treadmill effect. Success gives you a dopamine rush, but the baseline resets and now you need more just to feel the same. And sometimes when there's no next milestone, we turn to the next addiction. Drama, which may seem out of place in this list, but is often the glue that holds the others together, because when life becomes too quiet or uncertain or emotionally flat, we unconsciously create or seek conflict, chaos, or emotional intensity to feel alive again. Drama is addictive not just in reality TV but in everyday relationships, office politics, and online discourse because it activates the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and spikes adrenaline, giving us a neurochemical cocktail that mimics intensity and importance, making us feel engaged and needed. How else do you explain the surge of internet debate culture, outrage farming, and constant online fights over every possible topic? Part of us knows it's performative and toxic, but part of us gets hooked on the cortisol dopamine roller coaster. In families where affection was inconsistent or only came after drama, for example after a crisis, illness, or fight, people grow up associating intensity with love, and then recreate that pattern in adult relationships, even unconsciously. Therapists often describe trauma bonds as relationships where cycles of tension and release simulate the emotional highs of addiction. Your nervous system craves the spike even when it hurts, and today with social media platforms designed to amplify outrage, we are constantly exposed to emotionally charged content. Political scandals, celebrity controversies, societal breakdowns, these trigger our fight-or-flight systems, making us feel like we're in the middle of a tribal war, even when we're sitting in a coffee shop. This is what neuropsychologist Dr. Daniel Amen calls emotional hijacking, and it leads to long-term dysregulation of the nervous system, especially when drama becomes a primary source of stimulation. In essence, we live in an ecosystem where our ancient biology collides with engineered technology and cultural norms that exploit our most vulnerable traits. We don't just want to be entertained, we want to be validated, we want to feel significant, and we want to be safe. But we use modern tools to fill ancient holes. So what do? The first step is awareness, not just in a casual, I should scroll less way, but in a deep reckoning with the why behind our behaviors. Why do I reach for my phone the moment I feel anxious? Why do I need to prove I'm doing well to strangers online? Why do I feel empty after a big win? Why do I keep arguing with people who will never change their mind? These questions aren't always comfortable, but they're necessary. Second, we need new systems, educational, technological, relational, that don't just reward productivity or attention, but presence, reflection, emotional regulation, and authentic connection. Schools can teach kids how to identify emotions and set boundaries, not just memorize facts. Workplaces can reward depth and rest, not just speed and output. Social platforms can prioritize long-form, thoughtful content instead of algorithmic rage. Families can foster security without chaos, love without intensity, attention without performance. And on a personal level, we can start by unplugging, not forever, but mindfully, by setting digital Sabbaths, engaging in deep work, cultivating deliberate rest, and reconnecting with the parts of us that existed before the likes, the grades, the titles, and the noise. We can journal not for an audience but for ourselves, have real conversations instead of text exchanges, take walks without headphones and learn to sit with boredom instead of filling it with pixels. Because ultimately, addiction is not just about the substance or behavior, it's about the relationship we have with it and what need it tries to meet. And if we can understand that, we can start to rewrite the script, not by rejecting modern life, but by reclaiming our nervous system from the chaos it was never meant to handle. We don't need to be saints or monks or Luddites, we just need to pause to ask better questions, to befriend discomfort, and to build a life not of constant stimulation, but of meaning, because beneath the tech, the drama, the trophies, and the applause, we are still human, messy, marvelous, wired for connection, and maybe that, more than anything, is worth coming home.